Huh?
Why are you taking?
Where am I what?
Why are you taking?
Because he's continuing lecture.
All right, we should get started. Just a reminder, you took the midterm last 2 days ago. I'll pass that back to you today. The laboratory we're going to be doing today is on carbohydrates. I saved the lecture on carbohydrates, so I give it right now. It will be fresh in your mind when you once I start in the laboratory. I think the lecture may take 20 or 30 minutes, and then we'll get doing the laboratory goes pretty quickly. So I think it's not going to be so I'm sure you guys look forward to long video. Yes, more biology. That's all I need to say. Let's jump into the carbohydrates lecture here. The first page of your notes on carbohydrates, something like that. So in this section I want to talk about what the carbohydrate molecules look like and what their functions are and things. But before we actually get into the molecular details of what they're all about, I want to talk a little bit about our things in day-to-day life that are carbohydrates. To begin with, here they are, one of the 4 macromolecule types, you know that. Carbohydrates are the major product of photosynthesis. Since grade school, I'm sure you've been hearing about photosynthesis, how plants can make food for themselves using sunlight, and that's true. But what I'm saying is the food that plants make, the nutrients that they generate using the sunlight are carbohydrates. It's not protein or things like that that are directly generated. It's actually carbohydrates. And the reason why, the main reason why the plants make these carbohydrate molecules is for cellular fuel. Just like your car needs gasoline to keep running, all the cells and things need molecules to use as fuel also. And carbohydrates are the major fuel source for all cells, including the plant cells. Okay, the plant cell, it's constantly sucking in the carbohydrates that are made by photosynthesis to keep itself energized and running and alive. Now, we have to eat food to get nutrients for ourselves. And when we think about a lot of the foods we eat, they are plant-based foods. Certainly we eat meat, but a lot of the foods we eat are plant-based. And of course, other animals eat plants also. And one of the major reasons is to get those carbohydrates. It's not just the plant cells that use carbohydrates as a fuel source. Animal cells use carbohydrates also as the major fuel source. So when we eat plants, the major thing that we're getting out of them is their carbohydrates to fuel our own cells. And talking about the actual types of foods, carbohydrates that we get from plants, one of the types that we, human beings at least, seem to get a lot of is sugar. So sugar is in the carbohydrate family. Comes from plants, mostly from sugarcane and sugar beets. And I always thought it was kind of funny, here they're trying to sell you this particular bag of sugar. 100% pure cane sugar does not contain any beet sugar. Well, it's the exact same molecule, so who cares whether it came from a sugar cane or a sugar beet? So sugar is one type of carbohydrate that we get from plants. Another that we get from plants is called starch. And these are some examples of foods that are very starchy. Anything that comes from wheat, like pasta or bread, is going to be a starchy food. Potatoes are almost a big glob of starch, almost pure starch. Corn has a lot of starch in it. I don't have pictures of rice here, but rice has starch. Carrots have a lot of starch in them. So those are probably the 2 major carbohydrates that we eat from plant, sugars and starches. Plants also make some materials, fibrous materials, that are also in the carbohydrate family, but that we can't The actual name of the plant carbohydrate that's kind of fibrous and we can't eat is called cellulose. But we get things like cotton. Well, actually, before I leave the starches, I got a little ahead of myself here. When I was growing up, we had a food pyramid to tell us what to eat. Now, when you guys were in school, did you know the food pyramid or they don't? Food pyramid? You still have food pyramid, okay. But our food pyramid that they taught us in school looked like this, and they said that the base of the pyramid, in other words, what you should get the most of in your diet are starches. You can see nice pictures of rice and bread and stuff like this. And that's what we eat most of. And somewhere along the lines, they began to decide that starches were not quite as good for us as they thought they would. Like you probably heard of the Atkins diet, the South Beach diet, and things like that. The people who started those diets said, no, carbohydrates are terrible for you. Don't eat them. They get turned into fat too easily in your body. And some of those diets, like the Atkins diet, just basically said cut out all carbohydrates from your diet completely. And that seems a little extreme. And I'm not an expert on nutrients or diet, but from what I gathered, the mainstream consensus is that the white starchy foods are not so good for us, but the brown ones are fun. And so the general thought is, yes, eat rice, but eat brown rice, not white rice, and eat bread, but eat brown bread, not white bread. Eat basically brown whole wheat pasta, but not the white sort of pasta is probably the healthy way. And they kind of revamped the food pyramid. It's more complex now. But here's what I was saying. They still have starches down here, but they now say eat the whole grain ones, the brown ones. And they used to say avoid all fats and oils, but they now decided that plant oils, like olive oil and corn oil, are actually pretty good. So you could put those in. Which is fine. You know, I love dipping bread in olive oil or pouring olive oil on my pasta. And so as long as you use the whole wheat pasta, the new food pyramid gives it a thumbs up. So I guess that's good. Anyway, so what I was saying is, in addition to sugars and starches, plants also make a type of carbohydrate called cellulose. And the cellulose stuff we can't eat, but it's kind of a fiber stuff that we make useful things like paper and wood and cloth. So that's me. I was trying to demonstrate how tough cellulose is by trying to pull up a weed. And it's kind of amazing, even a little weed like that, that doesn't look all that substantial. If you pull on it, they're tough. It's like a tough leathery rope growing out of the ground there. You're more likely to hurt your back than actually break your teeth. Anyway, so wood is mostly made out of this cellulose stuff. Cotton, which becomes our clothing, is made out of this cellulose stuff. And paper is also cellulose stuff. Well, anyway, the idea here is that carbohydrates are created by plants with either photosynthesis, and we get a lot of useful things out of both foods and non-foods. Okay, now let's talk about the actual molecules involved in carbohydrates here. Oh, yeah, there's paper. Here we go. This is going to represent one of the monomers of the carbohydrate family of molecules. And just looking at it, how many carbohydrates against it? 6, right? Because every corner is a carbon, and 6 corners, so you say six carbons. And that's typical. The monosaccharides, which are the monomers of the carbohydrate family, typically have somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 carbons. Some of them have 5 carbons, I know of, and there might be some that have 4 carbons, or maybe some that have 7 carbons, but 6 is the most typical number. Now, so the monomers of the monosaccharides. If you have 2 monosaccharides joined together like this, it's called a disaccharide. Those are also considered part of the carbohydrate family, which is essentially a very small polymer of monosaccharides. And if you have lots and lots and lots of these monosaccharides joined together like this, that's called a polysaccharide. And kind of interestingly, the first two, the monosaccharides and the disaccharides, are sugars. as if you ate something that's made out of monosaccharides or disaccharides, it tastes very sweet to you. But polysaccharides are not sugars. They don't taste sweet at all. And for the life of me, I can't figure that out because, you know, if one tastes sweet and two together taste sweet, you would think that hundreds joined together would taste even sweeter. It should be super sweet, but just the opposite. It's not sweet at all. Just to give you an example of this, the sugar that you eat at your table is a disaccharide, definitely sweet tasting. But starch, like you might get in a piece of bread, is a polysaccharide, and it just does not taste sugary when you eat it. And how could that be? I have no idea. It's just bizarre. Yeah.
Does that have anything to do with the receptors?
Well, it must be part of the receptors, but I can imagine a receptor on your taste buds that the glucose is, well, that these monosaccharide glucoses fit into. But if it fits into here, it should fit into, you know, this glucose right here also. And it's like, I don't get it. It just seems odd. Anyway, all of them are part of the carbohydrate family. The word carbohydrate doesn't start to cite us in there. It doesn't just mean any one of these. All three of those are part of the carbohydrate family. Let's start off with the monosaccharides and then work our way a little bit further into the family and see what the larger ones look like. Monosaccharides are sometimes called the simple sugars because they are sugars that do taste sweet. Let's skip this bit for a second. Most of the names of the common monosaccharides end in OS, OSE. Glucose is a very common one. There's also one fructose. I think it got its name because they found it from fruit first. Galactose, ribose, there's one called arabinose. I'm not sure where that came from. But there's lots and lots of these monosaccharides. Of the monosaccharides, glucose is by far the most abundant and by far the most important. So I want to focus on that one before we go into what else on there. Here's a picture of a glucose molecule. There it is.